We just finished what would be our normal Monday routine, meeting with the team. Real quickly, following up on yesterday. I thought that sequence. Look, we didn't certainly play well enough to win a football game. I thought the sequence at the end of the first half was critical, where we're down 3, and we get the block punt, and we have the interception. They both turn into scoring opportunities, and really within a matter of a minute and 40 seconds. The game swings from 3-0 to 17-0. But that being said, it was disappointing and certainly a tough loss. And there are a lot of things, and there's not one just specific thing. But we've got to collectively bounce back from that, get ready this week to have our best week of preparation against a real good Tampa Bay team, and we'll do that. Any questions?
Did it look any better on tape?
Well, I think typically, Jim, what happens, and it kind of goes the other way with wins, there's some things you see on tape that are real encouraging. There's some real good play, and I thought defensively in that first half, we weren't able to defend those 2 short fields and force a field goal, but there were a lot of good things. We didn't get the rhythm established that we would have liked to on offense, and I think in the kicking game, it certainly was our worst performance of the year to date compared to how we've been playing. And not so much look, the block comes on a 6-man rush, which is really a return. And so it wasn't an 8-man rush, but I think typically after a big win or a tough loss, you come back in and that film brings you to the middle a little bit in regards to a lot of things. So there were some positives just in regards to individual performances, and yet those really collectively don't matter. And so we're watching the tape. Our players will go through it, and look closely at it. Today is really the last day we dwell and spend time on the game, and then we move on. But overall, it wasn't good enough. And like I said, St. Louis did a number of good things. We certainly didn't do enough to win the game.
Sean, as the afternoon progressed, did you feel as though your voice on the sidelines might have been able to make a difference in turning some mentality around?
I don't know. I think that the one element of being removed sometimes can be frustrating. Certainly, it's not as big of a deal if you're winning and having success like we had the week before, and yet, that part of it is more frustrating for me than calling or not calling plays. You with me? So there's certain things that you want to get the attention of a player or stress the emphasis of a situation or where you're at in the game, and yet look, we've got a great staff that does a great job, and I think our players understood coming out after the halftime, hey, what needed to be done here to start the second half, and the hole we dug, unfortunately, was deeper than we anticipated, and that happened very quickly, and all of a sudden it's 17 points, and yet everyone understood the sense of urgency, and everyone in that locker room understands week to week the talent level and how you have to play, especially on the road. When I don't care who it is you play on the road, and when you get a road win, those are important, and it's something we've done well. And yet the last 2 road games we haven't. But it's something we have to. I have to. All of us as coaches have to make the adjustment with, because I think it's going to be a little bit of time here before that I can get back down there. But I think that's just a small piece to really what happens Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I use this analogy a little bit, and I think I've probably used it before with you. And what we do, for a living really is no different than a teacher. And yet there's a lot more attention drawn to it. But we work each week on a lesson plan, and our job is to motivate. Our job is to improve and teach a subject, and then the test comes every Sunday. And so it's awfully rewarding when you have success, and when you don't, as a teacher, and you feel as if you're gonna collect these grades, and the grades are more C's and D's and it comes in groups, then you feel to some degree as a teacher you failed some. And so I think what's most important is that work week. I thought we had good energy during the week, and honestly, after looking at the film, you saw a lot of hustle and energy, and yet there's some execution flaws and errors and things that a real good team won't do, especially on the road. But we've got to get through this change, if you will, for the time being. How
personally frustrating, though, was it for you yesterday not to be able to get in someone's ear?
Well, I mean, I think that was the case last week as well. I mean, it's just adjusting to not so much being in the press box, but being in the press box as the head coach. That, you know, as an assistant in college and throughout the years, periodically, you know, I've been up in a press box before during a game, but I think it's it's harder to do.
Sean, you just said that you felt after watching the film that there was some energy, but Roman a second ago in the locker room said he didn't feel like that y'all matched.
Yeah, I don't think we matched.
Well, is that perplexing considering your message to them during the week was consistency coming off?
Hey, that's the biggest challenge, or the thing that is probably most difficult to know is when game day comes. You know, you expect to and want to get a certain level, and listen, when you play 16 games, it's realistic to think that there's going to be some games where you don't have that initially, and yet you still have to find a way to win. And so yesterday was going to have to be one of those games. Obviously, we played a team that was, but I thought to some degree that juice and energy came from them in that last 2 minutes of the half to some degree. All of a sudden at halftime now, you know, you're up 17 on a team as opposed to up 3. But, you know, you have to credit St. Louis. And like I said yesterday, Coach Spagnuolo and those guys worked their tails off and put together a good plan, but then played with it on Sunday.
What concerns you about, after watching tape, the protection of Breeze? I mean, we've never seen him.
Yeah, I think this. I think that the week before we did a real good job. I think that you know, looking at the tape, regardless of who the opponent is, we've got to be mindful of the edges. We can do some things that you know can help those guys. And look, each week you're probably playing someone who's got some skins on the wall as a pass rusher. And Long has played well, and maybe not as well as he had up to date, but certainly played well yesterday. And so, you know, some of those sacks came in obvious passing situations. A lot of them, it seemed to come on second down or third down. And we've just got to look closely at the strengths and weaknesses of each opponent and then our own personnel and do our best to make sure that we're able to, you know, give them some help. But, you know, yesterday wasn't about indecision or about a complex look as much as it was of just getting beat at times. And so, you know, we just got to, that's one part of the execution. And so, Larry, as you talk about the protection, there's a lot that can go into that. And you know, we can do a better job as coaches to work with our tackles or our inside people. And yet there's some things we have to do fundamentally better as well.
Sean, in the past you said, you know, don't eat the cheese. You come off probably the most perfect game your team's ever played. You hear about it all week long. You put up tape of these guys. They're winless. They've been outscored by an average of 19 points a game. They're averaging 9 points a game. How difficult is it to focus your team under those conditions?
Well, listen, it's one of the things that you know exists. I think here's the difference, though. You know, and I said this before, in the collegiate game, you know, these type of things maybe don't happen as often. In our game, you know, there's Steven Jackson getting a handoff. There's that fine line, and so certainly 0-6 is something you look at, and yet there's a handful of games that they had a chance to win. But to your point, Jim, it's knowing that this is a game played with passion, it's a game played with emotion, it's a game played with energy, and it's not without flaws, it's not without mistakes. And so coming off a big win like that, it's as a coach the first thing that concerns you when you follow it up with a game that so many people think that, well, you're just going to walk in there and throw the football out on the field and and you got to go play, and you have to go win that game, and we didn't do that, and St. Louis did. So, but you know, it's kind of as old as the hills, though. You know, in regards to those type of games, and yet you have to recognize that as a player and as a coach. You know, and recognize that. You know, that you have to go out there, and especially when you travel, you know, in an indoor environment. And look, you know, it's hard to win on the road, period. But that's something that, you know, I learned a long time ago from Bill. You know, he talked about that and recognized that after, you know, having prosperity or having some success, then you're playing a game like that. That's always a challenge, and it's a challenge for us as coaches, and certainly for us as a team.